Hi class, I'm sitting here with my fairly simple recipe site, and I'd like to show you how you can build a database-driven guestbook for your PHP recipe sites. So first of all, I'd like to add a navigation item for my guestbook. And to that, I enter my navigation PHP script and add a navigation item and make sure that I set an href that indicate a name of a file. So we could call that guestbook. Page equals guestbook. Because I've got page equals guestbook, I know that I'm going to want a new PHP script in my views folder called guestbook.php. So the file name guestbook corresponds to the value of the page variable for the navigation item. But let me just check in my browser. There is my navigation item. It's not doing a whole lot at this point. I get a 1 because I've got the blank file included. So let's go with the guestbook. Guestbook is coming. So I'm going to want to return some string, any string really, from my guestbook into my index. So it will be echoed from index to my browser. So with the return statement, I'd expect to see guestbook is coming when I'm on my guestbook page. On the other pages, I don't see that. Only on my guestbook page will I see the return output from the guestbook file. What I'd like to show here is a form where users can leave a little message for me saying, hey, I really like your recipe site, or maybe not, whatever they will want to write. So to do that, I'm going to want a form. Form is a primary means of communicating with the user, or rather having a user communicate with you through a website. So I'm going to make a new view script for showing that form. Let me just make that a little bigger so you can see what I'm doing. That should have another return statement with double quotes and a semicolon at the end. What I want to return is a form, a form element. And the form, as any form, must have a method. I could use either get, which will encode variables visible in the URL, or I could use post, which will do pretty much the same thing, except variables data from the form will be encoded invisibly. As I'm already using the get method for my navigation, I'd actually prefer my any other forms to be using the post method so as it won't interfere with my navigation. And I'd like the form to reload the current page whenever it's submitted. So action equals the URL to the script I want to run when the form is submitted. So when this form is submitted, I want the guestbook.php script to run. What I indicate in the action of the form is the script that will receive the form submission and run. So let's see, I'd like a label, write your name, and then an input field of type equals text with a value, with a name of username, and I'd like another label. What do you think of my site? And I'd like that to be not a single line text input, but a text area, which will be a multi-line text field, really. That too should have a name attribute. Name equals message, for example. Let me save that in the views folder as guestbook form html.php. And then from guestbook, maybe I should call that guestbook output should be equal to whatever I get back from that file, guestbook form html.php. So the $GB output holds whatever I get returned back from this script, and then that is what I'd like to see on index. So I'd like to see this form on index when the guestbook page is requested through the navigation. Let's take a look. There it is. I'm on page equals guestbook, and I see the form. My name is Thomas, and I think this site is great. Hang on. Where's my submit button? Let's add a submit button with this form, otherwise it won't be of much use. A submit button is another input element. It's not of type text, it is of type submit. We could call the name new message and set a value, which is what we will see on the button, of post. Let's see. There we are. There's a submit button. So my name is still Thomas, and I still think this site is great. Post. Okay, so what happened there? The form is now empty. What did happen was that clicking post would reload the page I was already on. So the form was reloaded. That's why it's empty. What I'd like to do now is I'd like my script, my guestbook script, to be able to respond when the form is submitted. And there are a number of name attributes on the form, and each one name attribute will encode a URL variable with the method post when the form is submitted. So, for example, new message will be encoded when this form is submitted. So I could go and say is form sub, let's just be a little specific, is guestbook form submitted. This is a with the $sign, this is a new variable, and that should hold if I can find the name new message in my post array, in my post superglobal array. If I can find that, I know the form was submitted, because that new message name comes from the form. It's created with the name attribute with the value of new message. So if that is present, I know the form is submitted. So if it is set, the form is submitted. If is guestbook form submitted, I'd like to add a little something for my output here. So form was submitted. Save, let's take a look. Refresh, resubmit. Okay, form was submitted. So whenever I write something and submit the form, I get to see form was submitted. If I just go and load the page, form was not submitted. If I post, form was submitted. It works. Now I'd like to see the things users wrote into these two fields. So the single line text field has a name of username. I can use that. So username is equal to whatever was submitted through the form under the name username. So this username here corresponds to that name attribute of my single line text input field here. So my variable $username will hold whatever a user typed in to that field. Similarly, I could create a message that holds whatever a user types into my text area under the name message. So the name message encodes whatever a user types in my post array under the name message. And the reason it is in the post array is because my form is using the method post. That's why I need to go with post here. Let's just add a few spaces to make the code a little easier to read. So form was submitted by username who wrote message. Let's take a look at that. Back to browser, refresh. My name is still Thomas, and I still think this site is great. Post. Undefined variable username. Oh, use name. I think I've misspelled it in guestbook PHP, line 10. Guestbook PHP, line 10, username should be username, because that's what I called it here. These two variable names must match. Let's just try that again. There we are. Form was submitted by who? Hang on, I'm not getting my name. Who wrote this site is great. Let me just try again. Guestbook. My name is Thomas, and I'd really like to get my name listed. And I think this site is hopefully getting better. I've still got the username, didn't I save? Nope, I did not save. Let me save my file. So now I'm using the actual username. And refresh. Come on, Thomas. Is it alright now? Form was submitted by Thomas, who wrote, "Is it alright now?" And thankfully it is. So what I've got here is the humble beginning of a guestbook. I'd like users, anybody visiting my site, to be able to write a name and a message, and I'd like whatever they write to be listed underneath so that everybody can see what anybody else thought about my site. To do that, I need a database to back up this data. I need a database to store names and messages, and then PHP to list names and messages of visitors. Before I get to that, I'd like to try and show a dummy message. Let's do like this. Function get guestbook data, and that should give me some data. What about data equals new standard class, and data username should be equal to, well, let's make that Brennan for a bit of variety here. Data message equals hello Thomas. Nice site. So that's my basic hard-coded data for one message, for one guestbook message. So return that data whenever the function is called. Underneath my guestbook form, I'd like that one message equals what I get back from get guestbook data, and then I need a view file. I need to represent my data as HTML. Nothing has changed here at all. If I go and look at my page, nothing has changed. So I need a new file. Let's make that a little bigger. And I'd like that to return, how about an H3 for one, did I call that one message? Yes, I did. So variable one message, username, road, end of H3, and then let's put in a paragraph with the message. Save this as guestbook messages as html.php. So I've got a view file that will represent my data with HTML. To use it, I need to where's that? Here we are. I'd need to concatenate what I get back from that file to my GB output, to my output buffer for the guestbook. So that should hold whatever I get back from the file in views, guestbook messages as html.php. Right, and because my guestbook messages view file here, because that relies on a variable of the name one message, it's an object really, because it relies on that, I need to load it after I've created such a variable holding an object. In this case it's a standard class object we're getting back whenever we call guestbook data. So let's take a look. There is Brennan's message, and if I go and write thanks, well, the form does get, PHP does know that my form was submitted, but my data does not get added to the page. To do that, I need a database to back me up, and that will be for my next video screencast. Thanks for watching this one.